Hey guys, this is Fusion here. I'm doing my Pickems for the playoff stage of the major. Yeah, it's been a fucking crazy major. Frankly, guys, in my humble opinion, look, major's been kind of ruined for me after a lot of these upsets that came through. For example, FaZe, Vitality, and Team Liquid. I think um, if anyone told me before this stage that three of the top five teams in the world were not going to be in the playoffs of the major, um, yeah, I'd be pretty shocked. Look, and I understand that technically I don't actually know if these five teams are listed as the top five teams in the world, phased through Team Liquid. But I think coming into the major, looking at like if you had to power rank them, I think that would be a pretty easy sentiment to say that these are probably the top five teams. Um, and oh, and something has just showed up on my computer. My bad. Um, but I think it would be pretty easy to say that these are the top five teams. And for those of you saying, "Well, I never believed Team Liquid was that good," shut the fuck up. You guys all said Team Liquid was the best team in the world after they fucking made the final of ESL Pro League and lost to Vitality. And then everyone said Vitality is the best team in the world. So I don't want to hear that Team Vitality or Team Liquid were not top five teams in the world going into this major. Shut up. You literally just, that doesn't make any sense. So I think it's pretty fair to say these are probably the top five teams, and three of them didn't make it. And shockingly, FaZe didn't make it, which sucked. I had them. Guys, I don't know how much more guaranteed my BNE pick could have been, or should have been, I should say. And then I just get absolutely destroyed by the number one team in the world losing to them in a best of three. Mental. But okay. Spirit, they lost like their second match. I don't think they ever had a chance of going 3-0, unfortunately for me. I took a gamble on NIP. That did not work out very well for me. Obviously, they played very bad. But frankly, other than the NIP pick, I think that's really the only one. And maybe the Spirit 3-0. Maybe. But I think, I mean, look, honestly, I don't think I had bad pick'em choices. I just think I just got unlucky. That the good teams decided to not play to their level. And FaZe had the very unfortunate situation of playing two of the top five teams in the world in their first two best of ones, which happened because of Cloud9 and Vitality doing very, very poorly in the first stage, and it kind of ruined the seeding for the second stage. And that just goes to show you guys how important it is to do well in your first day of your respective stage of the major, whether it's qualification or it's actually a part of either the challenger stage or the legend stage, because your first day can make or break you. And I think FaZe demonstrated that quite beautifully. And by beautifully, I mean terribly, because it was honestly really depressing to watch. Um, but enough of that. We're going to move on from this, and we are going to move on to the champion stage. As you guys can tell from the legend stage, I can't get the diamond coin. That's just not going to happen for me. I only got 3 picks right. So that is off the table. But we can gun for gold. And as you're about to see, I ain't going to pull any punches. So these are the 8 teams we have. It's pretty depressing, honestly, to look at this list of teams for this playoff stage of the major. I think if you had told me before the major started that these would be the 8 teams in the playoffs, I would have told you were high. But this is what we have. So we have Outsiders. Fair enough. I did think they'd go this far. Fnatic. Did not expect that at all. Mouse. Okay. Cloud9. Yeah, definitely. Team Spirit. Sure, why not? Heroic. Yeah, I guess. And Furia. Not really, but okay. And then Navi, of course. Um, Look, I think it's pretty clear to say Mouse and Furia probably the worst 2 teams here. Maybe you throw in Fnatic, frankly. Who knows? Like if Mouse played Fnatic, it'd be pretty close, and who knows? Mouse probably might even win depending on how they're feeling on that day. Um, because that's just how Mouse is apparently. But yeah, it's a bit tough with some of these teams. Now, what I do want to point out real quickly before I start showing my pick or doing my pick'ems is guys, if this doesn't show how stacked the CIS region is with talent, I don't know what does. Every single match, every single quarterfinal match has CIS representation. Outsiders for the Outsiders Fnatic game. Mouse versus Cloud9, obviously Cloud9. Team Spirit versus Heroic, Team Spirit, of course, with Wonderful, who's like 20 years old and he's an opper and he's incredible, and I really like watching Spirit play. And then Furia versus Na'Vi, where you obviously have Na'Vi. So that is pretty incredible to me. That was something that stood out to me, is just how talented the CIS region is. And frankly, what's even more impressive is I was just talking about how there's been a lot of upsets this major, and about how, a lot of these teams, you're looking at them and you're like, man, how did they even get here? Well, the CIS region teams all pretty much were, for the most part, expected to get to this stage. The only one, two, maybe two that you could say is Spirit and Outsiders. Spirit being the more likely team that you're like on the fence about. But Outsiders, I think Outsiders is a good enough team to make it to this stage. I think a lot of people slept on them, because again, it's a very strange team. But for some reason, they are just the hardest team to put away in Counter Strike, at this point, which is, it's just so crazy that after your Kindar leaves, they're still like this, but they just are. Um, you know. But I think Outsiders is a good enough team to be at this stage, and so then your only question mark is Team Spirit, who, quite frankly, is a pretty damn good team. So, I think overall it's pretty incredible to see how good the CIS region is. Moving forward, though, we're going to go from top to bottom, right, and then we're just going to keep doing that as we go across the bracket. So Outsiders Fnatic, I think this is a pretty clear cut Outsiders victory. These two teams have already played each other before. Outsiders dominated them. Fnatic looked outclassed. I think Outsiders at this stage is just too tough. Frankly, Fnatic is an okay team, but they really shouldn't have been here. There were better teams that could have made it here. Fnatic did well to make it to this stage, but they won't. They probably will not go any farther. I think Outsiders definitely wins this matchup. As for Mouse Cloud9, I think it's pretty clear to say Cloud9 is definitely the better team and should definitely win this match. I don't see a world where Mouse beat Cloud9. Again, very good of Mouse to make it to this point, but they probably won't move any farther. Um, and now we get into some of the. Well, this is probably the most interesting match of the quarterfinal, because it can kind of go, in my opinion, either way. I think Heroic is a better team, but Team Spirit, um, they've shown a lot of grit in this event. They're an exciting team to watch, or at least they have a lot of talent on their roster. Magix is a very talented rifler when he feels like performing. I say feels like performing. I understand, it's not really a choice, but when he's locked in, when he's playing well, he is an incredible player. But Wonderful has been a revelation on this team. I've really liked him ever since they picked up Wonderful. I was looking into him, and he looked like a really, really unique player. And so I've been very impressed with how he's been playing. He seems just like a really talented opper, which is just like, how many oppers are they going to just pull, from nothing, CIS region. It's incredible. Um, so they're really good. Patsy as an entry fragger, obviously playing an entry fragger role, you're not going to be the most consistent, but I think Patsy's definitely one of the better entry fraggers in the scene right now, and he definitely he's a young player, and he's shown a lot of potential, and he was very good at the last major, obviously, but I think I think he's a very talented player. And then Chopper's in-game leading is somewhat spotty, sure, but overall, I don't know. I really like this Team Spirit team. They're a really fun team to watch, play. And then I'm missing Siren, who's came from their academy roster, and he's kind of, as far as I can understand, I think when he was on the academy roster, he was playing these kind of roles as well. I think he's playing more of like he's like their anchor player. He's the guy that they have on the lockdown bomb sites. That's, hey, we need you to get 2 kills. And you know what, Siren for the most part does a pretty good job at that. He's still young. He's got room to improve, but he had some pretty good games in the last couple of matches, and I think overall he's a solid player. He's got a lot of potential to grow as well, and I think he's had some nice matches recently. And frankly, if even if he's somewhat underperforming, when you have as long as Magic's and Wonderful and Patsy or whatever are doing their thing, it's not as big of a deal. But I do think this is a team that is either going to look really, really good in this quarterfinal match, or they're going to look really, really bad in this quarterfinal match. And it just kind of depends on if their individual players are hitting at their peak, right, or at a good level. And that's, I think, the only chance that Team Spirit has of winning this game, because Heroic is a very fundamentally strong team. They're always a very fun team to watch in the sense of they're very coordinated. Cadian's calling can be quite nice, can be really good at times. Sometimes it's not so good, just like his opping. But Stown hasn't been as good as he used to, as he was earlier. But he's still an incredible player. I think Yabi has been finding his role a little bit better recently, which has been probably a big reason as to why Heroic is even here. And then on top of that, they have Tesses, who is a interesting, very strong rifler. Sometimes spotty, but um, it's he is a very talented rifler, and he's got quite a bit of experience at this point. So I think, as you can see, right, I think this matchup is really going to come down to who is hitting their shots. If Team Spirit's hitting their shots, I think they're going to win, and if Heroic's hitting their shots, I think they're going to win. But what I will say is Heroic has a little bit more leeway in the sense that I think they're in-game leading, Cadian versus Chopper. I think Cadian wins that in-game leading matchup, and I think overall Heroic plays a better style, or a safer, a more consistent style of Counter-Strike than Team Spirit does. And although my heart really wants to put Team Spirit to move forward, I am going to put Heroic. And I think Heroic is going to move forward. And then we get to Furia Navi. I think Navi pretty much wins this one. I don't even think it's going to be that close, frankly. It's nice that Furia made it to the quarterfinal, I guess, but they're really not that good of a team. I think people overhype them quite considerably. I don't really rate Art too highly as an in-game leader. I think Safe just looks. I don't know, man. Safe on Pain Gaming looked incredible, and Safe on Furia is average at best. Well, I mean, sometimes he'll have a good game, but he's relatively average, and that's not. Yes, some of that is on him, obviously, but I think definitely a portion of the blame has to go to Art and the fact that they're not utilizing Safe in the best possible way for him to be successful. Because you look at the guy's aim and it's incredible. So I just don't really understand why they haven't been able to unlock Safe in the same way that he was able to be utilized on Pain Gaming. I understand that there's players like Queserado and Yuri that are also being set up for big plays, but they're riflers. And I think it shouldn't be as difficult as it has appeared to be to set up I'm sorry, to set up Safe for success. So I just yeah, I'm a little off on Furia. The one thing you can always count on with Furia though is Queserado is going to be a beast. So I think that's nice. Unfortunately, I think I would have taken Fury over like a Fnatic or a Mouse, right? And they would have had a shot against Spirit. I probably still would have picked Spirit to go forward. But I think if they had played Mouse or Fnatic, I would have been like, they have a chance. But against any of these other teams, and especially Navi, Queserado isn't enough talent to beat simple electronic, Bit, um, SDY, I'm missing Perfecto, obviously, but there's not enough star power to beat Navi on this Furia roster. So I think it's pretty easy to say Navi's going to make it through. And then from there, right, we have Outsiders versus Cloud9 and Heroic versus Navi. I think this is overall a pretty cool semifinal. I think the quarterfinals were pretty dog water, honestly, in terms of I think these matchups aren't that interesting. Spirit Heroic is probably the most interesting. Um, and you know, um, and even then it's not that great. But I think Spirit Heroic is probably the most interesting match of the quarterfinal, and this is what happens, guys, when you have upsets in earlier stages, and those teams aren't actually as good as the teams that they just beat in the upset, right? I mean, look at Bad News Eagles, look at ENCE, for example. Both of those teams didn't make it to the stage, and both of them had upsets against top five teams in the world. So it just sucks. It just makes the quarterfinals worse. But whatever, I'll be working during the quarterfinals anyway, so I don't really have to watch too much of it. Um, Hopefully, Pickems go my way. Uh, but Anyways, this is what I have for the semifinal. I think in this semifinal, Outsiders versus Cloud9, this will be a really interesting matchup because Outsiders is usually the benchmark for great teams. Which is ironic considering, or maybe not ironic, but it's fitting considering that Outsiders obviously used to be Virtus, under the brand, under the organization of Virtus Pro, and Virtus Pro, and they have a long history of always, for some, even with different lineups, when they had like I don't want to call them the Fab Five, but like when they were like the Golden Age roster or whatever. And they had Neo, they had Taz and Snacks and Pasha and Bialy. They were the team that would make a semifinal of a major, and if you beat the Virtus Pro in the semifinal, you did win the major. Outsiders has a very similar vibe in the sense of if you beat Outsiders, you are probably a top team. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. Obviously, by the way I'm explaining it, I think Cloud9 is going to win. I think Cloud9's a better team. I think they have more talent, and I think that's the biggest differential between Cloud9 and Outsiders is just raw talent. I think that the talent on Cloud9 is just much stronger than on Outsiders. And I think Cloud9 has been looking pretty damn good this event, barring the first stage, which I will talk about in the next, when I talk about the finals. But yeah, I think Cloud9 is a better team than Outsiders and should probably win this matchup in the semifinal. Moving on to the other semifinal, we have Heroic versus Na'Vi. I think this is actually going to be a really interesting game because I actually, Heroic, man, funnily enough, very similar to Outsiders, man. You beat Heroic and you're probably a decent team, although Heroic has looked a lot shakier with Yabby. Yabby's looked pretty good recently. I think this is actually going to be a pretty cool game. Again, maybe my opinion on this will change, obviously, as we see how well Navi does in their quarterfinal, and if Heroic even makes it to the semifinal, or if they do make it to the semifinal, how much of a dominant win was it, right? How did Heroic look in their win to go to the semifinal, right? But look, Heroic, listen, they are probably the dark horse to win the entire event. I think you would probably put Heroic over Outsiders as the biggest dark horse to win this thing. Most people are probably predicting Na'Vi, and then you have some people picking Cloud9, and then the dark horse pick really is Heroic, because they are a very strong team. They definitely can win this major. They are similar to Cloud9 in the sense that they haven't quite gotten over the hump in some of these big events, but you know they're just considered a slightly worse team. But I think Heroic definitely is a dark horse to win the event. With all of that being said, I do think Navi just has too much pedigree. Simple always performs well, especially in the quarters and semis of a major, playoff run, and the talent on this roster is really strong. I think overall, I just think Navi is just a better team. And even if you look at their forms recently, obviously the major has been a little weird, but, even with Navi's shaky form, Heroic has also just as equally looked very, very shaky as of recent. This Yabby pick was not looking good going into this major. So overall, I think Navi is going to win this match, but I do think if anyone was going for a dark horse pick, if you wanted to go for a true dark horse pick, I think you go for Heroic. I think they definitely could do some damage that would be unexpected. Now, in this environment, we would get a Cloud9 Navi final. Most people are going with Navi to win the major, right? I'm going to go with Cloud9. Now, let me clarify. If you told me which team is better, Navi or Cloud9, I would tell you Navi. I think Navi is a better team. However, I think Cloud9 is going to win this major. And this is why I think Cloud9 is going to win this major. Cloud9, the common narrative surrounding Cloud9 is how they just can't quite seem to get over the hump, right? They looked good during the COVID era. They come into Stockholm, they underperform relative to their performances in the beginning of the year and during COVID. But overall, super young core, right? Getting to the semifinal is no joke. Overall, for how young they were, they did perform quite well. The problem is this year. They haven't looked great. Cologne was not good. The major was not good. They lost to Imperial in the Legend stage in a 0-2 or 1-2 matchup. I can't remember which one it was. Um, Not good. Not good. They should have been in the playoffs. They should have been fighting for that championship, right? They went to Dallas and they did beat Ents at the time when Ents was okay, pretty good, although they did have a stand-in. Um, but at that event as well, they also beat FaZe in a best of three. So okay, legit result. Um, you know, I understand. Look, EPL didn't go their way, right? They lost to Team Liquid after they topped the group in where they had Liquid in their group, but they lost to Liquid. And Liquid had the better, was had can't speak. Liquid, outperformed them in that event. Um, but I think something is just different with this event. A lot of people have been saying that this event feels like PGL Krakow. It just feels like one of those odd events that just results are just very strange. Nothing is really going the way that anything is expected. I mean, even the challenger stage, which most people did a decent job on Pickems, but even the challenger stage had quite a few upsets that were a little surprising, things that happened that were a little shocking. Obviously, Vitality and Cloud9 going down 0-2 was a little shocking at first. Um, you know, it's been a strange major. And I think Cloud9 had a very defining moment where in their challenger stage when they were 0-2, what team did they have to play but Imperial to decide if they were going to leave the major? And, frankly, at first I didn't really buy this whole narrative that Cloud9 beating Imperial in the 0-2 game of the challenger stage, when I don't think Imperial is that good of a team at all, was really that big of a point to really emphasize. But I can definitely understand how it could be a mental block for this Cloud9 team that you're playing Imperial in a elimination match in a major. They've been in that exact situation before. So I can understand how the mental block to players like this, to young players like this, um, how it could happen, right? Um, and so I actually, I didn't really believe in the narrative at all when they beat Imperial in that close 2-0 series, that, this was like a big defining moment for them. But ever since then, they have been on fire. Like, Shiro has been one of the best, if not the best, players of the tournament. Axile is ramping up as the major is going on. Hobbit, for as much as people want to talk about the lack of experience on Cloud9, Hobbit has won a major before. And Hobbit is an extremely talented and veteran player in the scene who just is another one of those players that just seems to perform better when you get bigger pressure situations, and he will just take over a map for you. He is the Kazakhstan fucking chosen one at this point. He really just is that special. Inters is an incredible. He's probably the most underrated player in Counter Strike right now. I mean, he is unbelievably. He's just so good, and nobody talks about him, and it's unreal. People talk more about Zipniks than they do Inters. It doesn't make any sense. Nafany's probably the biggest weak point of the team in terms of his in-game leading can be a little shaky, as well as his individual performance. I would like to, I think if Cloud9 is to beat Navi and to make it through this entire thing, Nafany does need to perform better. But I would argue with how well Shiro, Axile, Inters, Hobbit have been playing, it doesn't need to be anything insane, right? It just needs to be good enough, right? And I think that's possible. Um, as people are relating this event similar to Krakow, guess who won Krakow? Gambit, with Hobbit. So, look, listen, I know that's not exactly the most analytical point in the world, but, it's a narrative point. Um, you know, I think that's something it's something to bring up. It's something to mention. Because frequently you'll hear that, well, Cloud9 just isn't experienced. They're not experienced. They're too young, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, guys, this team has been around. They've played in a lot of lands at this point. Like, it's not like this team is brand new. Like, you know, this team's been playing in big events for a while now. I think it's about time they get over the hump, right? At some point, you have to do it. And I think maybe this is it. You got look at the teams they played in the Legend stage, guys. No joke, bet some of the best teams in the event, right? Some of the best teams in the event. They played FaZe in their first round. They beat them. They played Navi in the next match. They beat them. They played They play Heroic in the 2-0 game. Heroic, who at the time was looking lights out and was looking super super good, right? And who is projected in my projections to make the semifinals of this major. They beat them 2-0, 16-9 both maps. Like, Cloud9 has a very diverse map pool. Cloud9 is one of those teams where, like, look, if you take any of these other underdogs to play Navi in the final, you take outsiders to play Navi in the final, right? Navi should probably win in the sense that Navi's map pool is just better. You're going to be playing a best of 5 final, right? Um, I think Cloud9 is one of the teams that can definitely fight Navi in a best of 5. Not to mention, Cloud9 has only played Navi one time this entire year, and it was in the Legend stage, and Cloud9 won 16-14. I understand these are close games, and I'm not just trying to base it off of one best of one. But even when you look at these rosters and you look at the history between some of these players playing each other, within these lineups, um, you know, for a long while, the Cloud9 players, ex Gambit players, performed consistently well against Navi. I think what people aren't really paying too much attention to is the fact that these Cloud9 players actually do seem to play pretty well against Navi's players, historically at least. And on top of that, I think not only that, but they seem to, I guess, they played well against Navi's players, and frankly, I think the narrative has just gone on for too long now. And I think, look, yes, they've struggled. Okay, they haven't been the best. They have not been performing to the level that everyone knows they can perform to. But I think that first round was quite the difference maker. Frankly, I think the way they've bounced back after their initial drop off was, I mean, night and day. I mean, compare it to Vitality, who also went 0-2 in the Challenger stage, who also played tough opponents at the beginning of the Legend stage, and it's night and day. Cloud9 has just looked like they've bounced back in a much stronger way. I completely understand the experience disparity between Cloud9 and Navi. I understand Navi has the best player in the world. However, to kind of poke at Simple a little bit and to poke at Navi to kind of poke at their downsides so far this event and historically, Simple has not always performed to his peak status in major finals historically. I understand that when you say that and you say it's like saying LeBron James or Michael Jordan isn't performing at their peak, it's like, okay, so they're like 10 to 15% worse. You know what I mean? They're still probably one of the top 3 players in the server, but they're not it's not their god level of form that they're in like the quarterfinal and the semifinal, right? And that's what I'm bringing up. I think that's something to consider. I think something that's really important to consider is the fact that the young players on Navi have struggled in these past couple of events. Bit has not looked the same. Perfecto, he's more of the rock of the team, but sometimes he wanes. I think Electronic has been, obviously he's had some incredible maps for Navi now as the in-game leader, and I think he's doing a very good job. But it does not change the fact that when you are the in-game leader, you're going to have fluctuations, and Electronic has never been an in-game leader in these stakes, right? He's never been an in-game leader in a major final. He's never been an in-game leader in this type of situation. So, I don't think that advantage is as big as people think it is. He's probably he's probably due to fluctuate a little bit more, right? Um, or Yeah. Or actually, I'm sorry. Did he play? Was he the in-game leader during Antwerp? I might be wrong in saying that. Hang on. I might be wrong in saying that. Was Electronic? Was Boomlich not still on the team? No, because this is SDY's first major with Navi, correct? I think it is. I want to say that this is his first major with Navi, which would mean that Boomlich was still in-game leading for the team at Antwerp. Sorry, guys. I just want to make sure that I have this right. Oh, I don't know that I don't know that I can scroll that far on my phone, and I don't want to tab out, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm right in that. If I'm wrong, whatever. But I think that's correct. I'm pretty sure SDY came in just after that major. I want to say. I think so. So, anyways, I think this is Electronics' first major in game leading. I think that's something to take into consideration. Stakes are much higher here, obviously. SDY has looked good, but look, if you're relying on SDY to be the one to get you through the match, you're already looking at a Navi that's probably not at their best. And SDY has never been to this stage of an event either, of a major either. So I think when you look at those things, like sure, Navi is a very experienced team, is more experienced than Cloud9, but I don't think it's as clear cut as people are making it out to be. I think people are making it sound like it's this massive disparity, and I don't necessarily think that's true. SDY hasn't really been in this situation before. Electronic has won a major before, and he is a very extremely talented player who plays better at LAN, who plays better with the crowd. But I think people aren't considering the fact that I'm pretty sure this is his first major in-game leading. I mean, screw it. I can even probably just check here. I don't know why I didn't think to do this. If I go to, oh God, champion stage, can I not click on? Whatever. I don't even think I can. I don't even think I can click on this. Whatever. You get my point. You get my point. Okay. I'm pretty sure this is. Oh, I have to do this all over again. Oh my. Oh no, guys, it's so tragic. It's so tragic. Okay. Anyways, we got it. We fixed it. We're good. This is his first major in game leading, and I think that's not something to be taken lightly, right? Um, and Bit has been underperforming, and he is young. So I think these are all things to consider when you look at this matchup. Again, if I look at both of these teams, which team do I think is better? I think it's Navi, but I think Cloud9 has a strong case to win this major and could definitely do so. And I think a lot of people I've been seeing have been predicting Navi and are saying like this is look you know what, I'll bring this up too. This is an interesting point. Everyone is saying this is Navi's major to lose. This is Navi's major to lose. The last time we said that about Navi was in Stockholm. And Navi was far and away the best team in the world. Far and away the best team in the world, right? They were dominant. They looked like they were unstoppable. They were destined to win that final. Destined. Bit was playing at an unreal level. None of their players looked bad. They all looked like they were performing at their peak, right? That is not the case for this major. The only reason why people are saying this is Navi's major to lose in this event is because because all the other favorites have been knocked out. Vitality, they're gone. FaZe, they're gone. Even Liquid, if you wanted a dark horse run, they're gone. In the top five, right? The only other team in the top five who's posing a threat is Cloud9, and everyone is disregarding them because, well, they haven't proven it yet. And frankly, I do agree that is true. They haven't proven it yet at a top event. But guess what? Neither did Liquid. Vitality won EPL. Sure, that's pretty legit. But and FaZe is the best team. They will be the best team. This year regardless. But my point being just that I think Cloud9 is just being slept on too much, and I think their narrative has gone on for long enough where this feels like it could be the change, and maybe that Imperial match did spark something within this roster, to just stop overthinking things maybe in their head. And I think, look, when you consider the fact Cloud9 seems to always struggle when they're considered the favorites, right? When they're playing the Imperials of the world, right? When they're playing the match where they're expected to win, right? I mean, let's look at Stockholm. I know I'm just gonna lock this for now so that I don't have to redo them. But let's look back at the Stockholm Major, right? They went into the champion stage. This is the Cloud9 roster. They played Na'Vi and they lost. And they actually got battered pretty poorly against this. And this is when they were young, right? But then when you consider when you go into this stage, right? They went to the Legend stage and they ended up not making it. They ended up not making it. They ended up losing to Imperial. Um, And frankly, that was a match that they were supposed to win. They were favorites. It just seems like this team seriously like struggles when they're the favorites at times. They really struggle with that. I mean, just think. I mean, yes, they beat Ents in the final of Dallas, but they played FaZe Clan. They played the best team in the world, and they were not projected to win, and they did win. I think this is a very similar situation. Maybe Cloud9 is coming into this. If anything, I worry most about Cloud9. Well, okay, this isn't necessarily true. I was going to say I worry most about Cloud9 against outsiders, but assuming they beat outsiders and they do play Navi in the other side of the bracket, yes, this is obviously the one you worry about the most with Cloud9 because it's the final and it's Navi. But in order for you to get to this match, you have to play outsiders most likely, and that is a scary matchup to play, right? That is a scary matchup to play for sure. I will acknowledge that. That's scarier than people are really thinking it is. A lot of people are just thinking this is a free match. I don't think so, but I do think Cloud9's a better team. Um, but I think this major is different. I think this is Cloud9's time to shine. I think this will be the event where they get over the hump. It's been a very strange major. I don't see why this should be any different now. Dude, for all I know at this point, Outsiders is going to win the whole friggin' major. You're going to have an Outsiders heroic final, and Outsiders is going to be your major champions. And for the first time, probably I think ever, you're going to have an organization that's not really an organization win a major. Like at this point, with how random some of these like results have been, with how ridiculous they've been. Like, who freaking knows at this point? Mows are your new major champion. But in all seriousness, guys, like I do actually think Cloud9 actually has a much stronger chance to win this thing than they did before. And frankly, I wasn't gonna pick the easy option of Navi when, god damn it, I'm not getting a diamond coined anyway. I might as well go for broke. I'm picking Cloud9. You know what I mean? Like I'm going on the hopium train, the Cloud9 hopium train. I'm gonna look like a fool, obviously, when if they bomb out early. But I'm gonna go on the Cloud9 hopium train because at this point, if you're not gonna get the diamond coined anyway, you might as well just go for broke. So why not? I'm not gonna play it safe. I'm not. I did that in the last stage, and look what it did to me. So anyways, guys, I'm sorry. I know this is quite a long ramble for this, but I did want to explain my case on Cloud9 versus Navi. Just kind of give some talking points there that might be interesting. But other than that, guys, this is what I think is going to happen in the major playoff stage. Thankfully, I'll be at work for the quarterfinals, so I don't have to watch that garbage. But we can move on to the semifinals and have some fun. Um, um, no, but with all jokes aside, guys, really looking forward to the end of this major. Um, and by the way, for any of you guys looking forward to a Bleed Blue episode for EG, I will be doing that this weekend. I've had some personal things in my life going on recently, so I've been able to make a video. I didn't make a video last week, but I will be making one this week, so stay tuned for my reaction to EG and some of the news that it's been surrounding them. Obviously, a reaction to the major result, but yeah. So, anyways, guys, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys next episode. Well, not next episode because Pickems. But if you watch Bleed Blue, I'll see you there. If I can find the end button.